U.S. President-elect Joe Biden is signaling his plan to scrap the Keystone XL pipeline as one of his first moves once in power, according to sources who spoke to CBC. Earlier, we talked to Parliamentary Secretary Paul Lefebvre, who said his government would continue to make the case for the project. Let's get some more reaction now from Scott Moe. He's the Premier of Saskatchewan. He joins us from Regina. Hi, Premier Moe. Good to see you. Thank you for making the time.
Well, thank you, Vashi.
Premier, Mr. Biden was crystal clear in his campaign. One of his spokespersons put out a statement at one point saying Mr. Biden would proudly stand in the Roosevelt Room again as president and stop it for good by rescinding the Keystone XL pipeline permit. Should this have come as a surprise at all?
This is very concerning, and I think it is surprising that the president-elect would be making this decision in his very first day in office. It's concerning as it's been up until this point, a project that has been supported by both administrations on both sides of the border. It's supported by all of the people that are working on the project and hope to work in its operations in the years ahead. This is a positive project for North America, and it would be most concerning that on day one, that President-elect Biden is going to make a decision like this, a controversial decision like this, and it would be very concerning as to where our Canada-U.S. relations may go in the future.
It's one of those rare projects or issues related to the energy industry that actually sees the alignment of provincial governments with the federal government. What does it say to you that even despite that alignment, it doesn't appear that Mr. Biden's mind can be changed?
Well, it says to me that I would hope that the federal government, and I know we are as a provincial government, are going to be making the case in the next number of hours and days as best we can to the Biden administration as to the merits of this project. And as I say, not only does this provide energy security for North America, but it also provides the opportunity for jobs that are folks that are currently working on the construction of this pipeline on both sides of the border. It provides jobs for those for years into the future. And ultimately, there is an environmental plan around this particular pipeline, unlike any other pipeline I'm aware of. It's net zero in its operations. The product that's coming out of Saskatchewan and going into this pipeline has reduced our greenhouse gas emissions in its production on a per barrel use by 50%. A sustainable product going into a sustainably operated pipeline, providing energy security for all of North America. I think this is a project that there's a reason that both sides of the borders administrations had approved it until this point, and we hope that it will continue in its construction and continue with the opportunity that it can provide.
I imagine Joe Biden and his supporters would challenge the assertions that you made by saying that claim by TC Energy around net zero was just made yesterday and that there aren't a whole lot of details yet provided about how that would actually happen. And B, when it comes to the creation of jobs, yes, there are some good numbers clearly coming through the construction, but their own State Department analyzed back in 2014, once the pipeline is operational, there would only be about 35 permanent employees in the United States. With a president-elect who has prioritized climate change in the way that he did, can you understand how the arguments you're putting forth won't really be convincing?
No, because our arguments do hold water. As I said, the energy coming from Saskatchewan that's in that pipeline and additional energy in the existing pipeline infrastructure and the additional energy that would go into an expanded KXL has reduced our greenhouse gas emissions by some 50%. The refinery and the refinery is still going to operate, and the demand for the end-use product is still there. But it is going to be procured in absence of this pipeline by places like Venezuela or OPEC nations that have a much more problematic environmental record, and in particular climate change record and climate change goals than the product that's going into this particular pipeline. This pipeline fits within Canada's climate strategy. That's, I think, why the federal government supports it. And then most certainly, I think the federal government and us as provinces are looking to ensure that the Biden administration has all of the facts and has the merits of why this pipeline is beneficial for all of us in North America.
I take your point, but I wonder with respect, Premier, if in fact we know for sure that should this pipeline not be built, that it would be supplanted with the product that you lay out. And I guess I would ask, Is it worth putting everyone's eggs in this basket when you think about demand being down? And I know that there are projections beyond 2023 that it will pick back up, but still, it will take until then, according to the IEA, to come back. Prices have been volatile and very depressed. Oil sands companies right now are not even focused on expanding production. They're focused on return for investment for their shareholders and cash flow. It's not like you see tons of announcements of them wanting to expand production and the need for more and more pipelines. You've got TMX, potentially Line 3. Is it really worth the fight for Keystone?
Absolutely. Saskatchewan, I spoke a little bit of the direct barrels of oil that would go into that pipeline and their environmental record, but just by the expanding differential over the course of the last few years, or just even this past year, the Saskatchewan energy industry, which is about the third largest, very close to Newfoundland in the nation, was down about $900 million just due to the differential this past year. That we all know was a pandemic year where our production was down. Demand has been off over the course of the past year, and it still cost our Saskatchewan energy industry close to $1 billion. It's far north of that in normal operating years. We'll be far north of that in the years ahead. And by and large, that's not only a cost to Saskatchewan's industry, but it's a cost to all Canadians. Ultimately, as we share that wealth across the nation, and people work in the Saskatchewan energy industry from other areas of the nation as well. So the cost is very dear, is much larger in Alberta, but the cost is to all Canadians. And I would say that if this project is canceled, it's to all of our detriment in North America.
But that differential will be impacted by the construction of TMX, by Line 3 getting up and running. That differential will be impacted by those. There's lots of analysis out there about how Keystone becomes an extra after the two of those.
And it will be impacted. That differential will also be impacted by KXL. Listen, the U.S. or the Gulf Coast is by and large been the largest purchaser of Saskatchewan energy over the course of the last number of years. Will continue to be likely for the course of the next number of years. If this project is not able to go ahead, it is as I said, detrimental for the opportunities and jobs. It's detrimental for our economy, both north and south of the border. It's detrimental for having ultimate energy security for all North Americans. And as I said, this particular pipeline is somewhat unique in the environmental record that it has. It has an environmental record unlike any other pipeline project that I have seen going forward, whether it be in the operations of the pipeline itself or whether it be in the actual energy that's being transported in it.
Okay, I'm out of time, unfortunately. I have a lot more questions, and I know there are definitely questions about the projections put forth about the pipeline in operation and its environmental impact, but I'll leave it there for now. Thank you, Premier Moe. Pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Vashi.
The pipeline that could be on its deathbed once again. Sources tell CBC News that President-elect Joe Biden will pull the presidential permit for Keystone XL on his first day in office. The provincial government in Alberta estimates that the project will create roughly 2,000 construction jobs over the next 2 years. The province also expects it to generate $30 billion in tax and royalty revenues for Alberta and the rest of the country over 2 decades in operation. So can the Prime Minister still change Joe Biden's mind? Paul Lefebvre is the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources. He's with us from Sudbury, Ontario. Hi, Mr. Lefebvre. Good to see you again. Thanks for making the time.
Thank you, Vashi.
Sources have told CBC that the project, that KXL, will be killed by the president-elect on his first day in office. Has the Biden administration told the federal government that directly?
Right now, as the answer to that is no. Certainly, we continue to engage at our officials level, but certainly the current administration is still the Trump administration, and on the January 20th, the new administration will be sworn in, and at that point, we will certainly engage with the new administration. But what I will say, though, is that the Prime Minister has been quite clear a few months ago, saying our position with respect to the Keystone XL project, as well as even 7 years ago. So our position has not changed. The Biden administration is aware, but certainly speculating as to what their decisions will be right now is certainly not something that we want to engage in.
Why isn't it something that you want to engage in? Is it really speculation? I mean, there are multiple outlets in both the United States and Canada reporting that people inside the Biden administration, for example, have confirmed that. You're saying that the federal government has no knowledge of Joe Biden's plans to kill this presidential permit?
I think no. So certainly, what I'm saying is that we continue to engage at our officials level, and we continue to make the case that of why this infrastructure project is important.
Has the Prime Minister directly reached out to Mr. Biden or anyone close to him since news of this surfaced?
Well, certainly, Vashi, we've been, like I said before, our position has not changed. Right now, the current administration, the Biden administration will be coming into place on Wednesday, and after that, we will continue to have our conversations. But I know at the official level that we certainly continue to make the case with the U.S. officials through our U.S. ambassador. But we strongly believe that the importance of dialogue with that will be key as to how we move forward.
So just to be clear, though, the Prime Minister has not reached out since news of this surfaced, because the Prime Minister had spoken to Mr. Biden previously since the election. But since this news, there has been no outreach from the Prime Minister to Mr. Biden or his office or those who surround him on the issue.
Listen, I can't speculate as to what the PMO has or has not done, but I know that we have made the case at many times. The Biden administration is more than aware of where our position is. We made the case through our ambassador, and we continue to certainly make the case as to why this project is important.
What does it say, or what should it say to Canadians, that the Biden administration, thus far it appears, has not been convinced by all the arguments that you say have been put forth by this government?
Well, certainly for us, the Biden administration has also stated that they foresee oil and gas being important for decades to come. And we are making the case that the most strong environmental and climate policy frameworks in the world is in Canada. And that's why we believe that this project fits in with what the U.S. administration, the new Biden administration wants to do as well. So for us, having the cleanest fuels in the world being exported, and that's why this project, we believe in it. We believe in the workers of Alberta. We believe in certainly as to the measures that we have put in place, the price on pollution, making sure that the clean fuel standards that we're putting in place. We want to have, and we have, the most strictest ESG regulations in the world. And that's why we will continue to promote, certainly as the world needs oil and gas, why they should be taking and consuming Canadian oil and gas.
My question, though, Mr. Lefebvre, with all due respect, was why all of that has failed to convince Joe Biden to make a decision other than the one it appears he is very clearly going to make, not just at some time during his administration, but on the first day that he's in office. That says something, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, again, Vashi, I think we are speculating. I think we need to wait to see what happens on Wednesday. But as I said before, we believe in our workers in Alberta and in Saskatchewan. We are proud of the work that they do. At the same time, we have put measures in place to make sure that we can promote and continue and be behind Canadian oil and gas. Why? Because it has the most strictest regulations of environmental stewardship in the world. We will continue to do that, and that is we'd be fools not to continue to support certainly all the regulations that we have put in place, and that and why it's important to make the case for Canadian oil and gas.
There's been so much discussion amongst many people involved in both sides of the relationship between the U.S. and Canada since the outcome of the election in November about a sense of optimism that the relationship will change, be more predictable, for example, going forward than it was under the last 4 years under President Donald Trump. If Joe Biden were to immediately rescind this presidential permit, what message does that send your government and Canadians about the potential for that renewed relationship?
I think, again, Vashi, I think we are speculating now. But what I can say is that certainly since 2015, since we took office, certainly putting the strictest, like we put a price on pollution, and we have a climate plan to meet our Paris 2030 targets and to get to net zero by 2050. And this is outside people, certainly third parties, saying that the plan that we put in place in December will help us achieve that. And within that plan, we still believe that there is room for supporting Canadian oil and gas. As I said before, the case that we are making is having the cleanest fuels in the world, and as the world will continue to need. Again, the Biden administration has also said that they foresee oil and gas being certainly something that it will be required for decades to come. We want to make sure that our job is to make sure that Canadian oil and gas is at the forefront to be certainly to access those markets.
Even if, as you characterize it, the timing of this decision will be speculative, the president-elect has been unequivocal about his position on Keystone XL and has been during the campaign. His campaign said he would proudly stand in the Roosevelt Room again as president and stop it for good by rescinding the Keystone XL pipeline permit. So it's not necessarily speculation. Maybe the timing is because, as you say, the federal government hasn't heard directly from him on that. But to that point, look, a lot of critics of the federal government say, and I take all what you've put forth about supporting workers in Alberta and the project itself. There are critics, though, who say that, you kind of have to put your money where your mouth is, kind of, they'd like to see more action on your part. And with all due respect and appreciation for you appearing on the show, the federal government wasn't able to put a minister to talk about this. Should we take that as an indication of anything?
No, I think, Vashi, what you take as an indication is certainly the plan that we put forward for our climate change agenda in December. That is a plan that we put forward. And at the same time, we strongly believe, and we've been saying this since 2015, we can do both. We can certainly support our economy and at the same time support our environment, right? And certainly we also hear, when we hear climate change, we also hear jobs. And at the same time, that's why we have put the strictest regulations, and certainly we believe in the world when it comes to extractives, right? And certainly putting the strongest measures in place, and so that we can continue to support our workers in Alberta and in Saskatchewan, and because we truly believe in the great work that they do, and at the same time meet our net zero target and meet our 2030 targets with respect to the climate change, the Paris targets.
Okay, Mr. Lefebvre, I'll leave it there. I do appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.